Yes, good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm audible to you. Okay, okay, I'm starting the session. So, what was the topic we discussed yesterday? Topology. Yes. So yesterday we discussed first the examples of IP addressing. After that, we discuss about the topology. So, how many types of topology we have? Two types, physical and logical. So, physical topology deals with how the devices or the systems are connected in the network. So you can see which is the best topology to connect the system, star topology. So you will find that everywhere in all the organization you will have the systems connected with star topology. So in simple words, what is star topology? Where we have to connect all the system to the same switch. If one switch is not enough, we have to take one cable, connect one end of the cable to one switch, another end of the cable to the other switch. So that is how you can connect the devices through the star topology. Then after that, we discussed that if you once the devices are connected, the transmission of the data takes place. How the transmission of the data takes place, can we see that? No. But we can understand that with the help of logical topology. So how many types of logical topologies we have? Two types of logical topologies. What are they? Work group model, which is also called as peer-to-peer model. And the other model is what? Domain model. So which model we have discussed yesterday? Work group model. So who will create this work group model? Yes. Remember the point? Yes. Who will create this work group model? Yes, it is created by default. So in Windows, we have how many types of OS? In Windows, how many types of OS? We have two types, client OS and so whenever we install either client OS or server OS, by default, all the systems by default will be in work group model. So in work group model, there will be no server, no client. All the computers are independent. So if you create a user from the workgroup model, which type of user will be created? Yesterday, local user. So we have done the practical also yesterday. Yesterday we have done the practical, yes. So we have created one user from our server. We have created a machine with the 2022 server operating system. So I shown you how to check it, yes. Go to the PC, right click properties, then advanced. So if you go there, remote advanced, you can find what? The work group. So your system, whether you install if you install in your machine, either server OS or client OS, by default, all the systems will be in work group. So yesterday we discussed how to create a user from the work group. So that user is called local user. Why it is called local user? Because in workgroup model, if you create a user, that user can log in from that machine only, not from the other machine. So when we log in, the username and password will be checked. Correct or not, it will have to check. So who will check the username and password is correct or not? Yes, very nice. NTLM protocol. Where this NTLM protocol will check? Yes, yes, those you can just write it in the chat box. You remember yesterday? Yes, yes, SAM, which is called database file, user database file. File name is SAM. Yesterday I told you the location, C drive, Windows, system 32, their config. Under that, you will find what? SAM file. So NTLM protocol will check username and password is correct or not in SAM database file. So here, if a user is created in other machine, can it log in from the other machine? Like user one created from computer one. Can it log in from computer two? No. So if I want any user to log in from any machine in workgroup model, what to do? Create all the users in all the machines. Will it be a good option? So everything you have to do. So the conclusion is in workgroup model, everything has to be done in workgroup model, everything has to be done in every machine. So just to take, imagine if 100 users are there, 100 system. So total, how many users you have to create? 10,000. If one user left, you have to delete is for one user in how many machines? All machines. So this is one simple example. That is what the difficulty you will face when you are using the workgroup model. So in one word, you can say everything has to be done in every machine in workgroup model. So that's why any organization uses the workgroup model? No. No organization uses the workgroup model. So whatever problem, what is the biggest drawback in the workgroup model? Everything has to be done in every machine. So can we overcome this problem? Can we overcome this problem? Yes or no? Yes, we can overcome. How? How we can overcome this problem? Yes, by using what? Domain model. So whatever drawback is there in workgroup model, we can overcome by using which model? Domain model. So today we are going to discuss which model? Domain model. So who will create the domain model? Administrator has to create. Remember, workgroup model, who has to create? No one. All the system by default will be in workgroup model. Please remember this point. Workgroup model need not to be created. But what is the disadvantage in workgroup model? Everything has to be done in every machine. So this problem we can overcome by using domain model. But domain model need to be created. So today we will see how to create a domain model, how to convert our machine, which is in workgroup model, to domain model. So today will be our first class of Active Directory. Out of the 5 sessions of Active Directory, today will be the first topic of the Active Directory, which is very, very important, where we will be discussing how to change our system from workgroup model to domain model. So in today's session, you have to understand how many things. If you want to work in domain model, you have to understand how many things. 3 things you have to understand. So how many things you have to understand today to work in domain model? 3 things. What are those 3 things? So first of all, you should know today what is ADDS. So this is our Active Directory first class, in which we are going to discuss 3 important things. First, we should be knowing what is ADDS. Then second thing, we should be knowing about DC. DC stands for domain controller. And the third thing is domain. So 3 things we have to understand today. So once you understand these 3 things, means you understood the first class of the Active Directory. Okay. So let me first start with before I go to these 3 things, let me start with the domain model. Workgroup model, yesterday we have completed, yes. So today, very important session. So yesterday I told you don't miss the class. So most of the people have joined, because if you miss this class, you will not understand the remaining classes. So now we will see how to, first of all, before we discuss these 3 things, first we should know what is a domain model. So yesterday we discussed workgroup model. How many servers and how many clients will be there in workgroup model? No server, no client. But Domain model is also called as server and client model. So workgroup model is called peer-to-peer model, remember? But domain model is called client server or server client model, because in the domain model compulsory, what will be there? This domain model is also called as server or client model, because compulsory here we should have how many servers? Minimum how many servers? One. Maximum? Maximum? No limit. Minimum? One server. Maximum? No limit. Same way, how many client? How many client you require to work in the domain model? How many client you require? Minimum one. Maximum? No limit. Remember this. So domain model is also called as server and client model, because in this model, compulsory we should have minimum one server, one client. Can we have more than one server and more than one client? Yes, but minimum one server, one client should be there. Can we have a domain model without server? You cannot have. Server means, yes, server means, as the name indicates, server. Server means, server is one which provide services. So server, how do you define a server? Server means which provide services. Okay. So now we are going to discuss about the domain model. So domain model is also called as server client or client server model. In this, compulsory one of the machine we have to make as a server. Who can make the server? Administrator. So using this server, the administrator can control and manage the network. Network consists of, yes, how do you define a network? Network consists of what? System, devices. Network is contain what? Interconnection of devices. Yes, multiple systems will be there in the network. So once the administrator create the server, using the server, administrator can control and manage all the users and computer. From where? By sitting where? What is the job of the administrator? I told you first today. Managing the network. Managing the network. So to manage the network, we have two options: going to each machine and managing. Other option, by sitting on our particular machine, managing. Which option you prefer if you are administrator? Sitting on your machine. So the machine on which you are sitting, you can sit on any machine and manage? No. So where you are sitting, that machine you have to make first as a, what you have to make? Domain controller. What you have to make? Domain controller. So today we will see how to make our machine on which we are sitting as a server. After making the server only, we can control and manage all the systems. So what is the first condition you have to do? If you want to work on this domain model, create a server. So using the server, we can control and manage all the users and computer, because whatever you do on the server, that effect will be there on all the systems. Are you following? Yes. Are you following, all of you online students? Yes. The administrator has to always work from the server. See, See, what you will do, your server will be on the what? Your separate room, because we will be using what? Hardware servers. So you will be taking remotely. So you have to manage and control all users, means you have to take the server. You have to work on the server. So you'll be not sitting directly on that room. So with your machine, you will remotely log in. So you can log in with administrator name also with your name, but you have to give the credential. How to give that also we will see. Okay.
Yeah, usually the users will administrator sit from the ODC or where the IT bay, and he will install admin pack or whatever it may be, and from there he will control or through CyberArk or different these things. But he never directly log. I mean, if required any services need to be restarted or anything done in the server, then only he will log into the server. Otherwise, admin pack he can able to control all the things in the AD.
See, without making the DC, how you will access it? First, you have to, what
No,
we
no,
are
no, no. I'm
discussing
not
as an
telling. No,
administrator,
no.
what you have to do? Ah, hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
After and everything, controlling and
Hmm.
all these things can be done only through client by installing admin pack, and from there only he will do, right. He won't directly. I mean, every time you log into the server and do all the required operations. Okay, while
Whenever
setting up
it is
everything.
required, you have to compulsory you have to take the remote desktop and work it when it is required. And you will be not given administrator name, but they will provide you your name. With your name, you can log in. How to do that? That also we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So now, first of all, the server has to be created. So will it be created automatically? No. So today we'll see as a administrator, what are the things we have to do to configure can the server configured by the user? No. Can it be done on the client OS? No. That's why we have installed which OS? Server OS. So today we'll see how to make our machine, which is with server OS, but it is working as work group. So we have to make that machine as a domain controller server. For that, compulsory what you have to do, you have to install this course, most important topic I told you. What is the most important topic? Our service through which we will change our machine from the work group to the server. So what is the service we have to install today? Yes, what is the service we have to install? ADDS. Remember, first day I told you. So what is the most important topic of this course? Active Directory Domain Service. So that we have to install to make our machine as a server, which is called technically what name? Server here technically called with what name? Yes, what is the name given to the server here? In our this course, the server is called with what name? What it is called? Yes, domain controller. So today we have to make so that's what I written here. First you have to install the ADDS. Then configure what? DC. DC means what? Domain controller. Then we have to, we'll also get what? Domain. So these three things we have to understand. So then only you will understand the first class of the Active Directory. So here you have to first thing, make the one of the machine on which you are sitting as a domain controller. So once you make that, then whatever changes you'll do on the DC machine, that effect will be there on all the system. So by using the domain controller, we can manage we can control and manage all the users and computer as per the company requirement. So for that, we have to first make that machine as a domain controller. So as the name indicate, domain controller. Using that, we can control and manage all the systems and user in our network. So will it be created automatically? No, we have to create it as an administrator. So how to create, we'll see. So now we are working on domain model. So this we discussed yesterday, yes. Now from here we have to continue domain model. So domain model is given by which symbol? Domain model is represented with a symbol what? So whenever you see the symbol triangle, you have to understand that it is a symbol for domain model. So domain model is represented with what symbol? Triangle. It is a triangle. So when you see the triangle, means we are working on that is a domain model. Now the domain model need to be created. So to create this domain model, first condition is your computer should be there with client OS or server OS. So first condition is your computer should be with server OS. This is the first condition. So when you install your computer with server OS, will it be in workgroup or domain model? It will be in workgroup. So first you should have your machine with the server OS, and by default it will be in workgroup. So to make this machine as a domain controller server, so what you have to do in this machine first? What you have to do in this machine first? This machine is with server OS. So first condition is satisfied. Now to make this machine domain controller server, what I need to do? This is a machine with server OS. So I have to install what? Yes, Trushar, you are correct. So to change it from workgroup to domain model, what we have to do? We have to install the service called ADDS. What is the full form of ADDS? Yes, Active Directory Domain Service. So now, all of you, concentrate. If I install the ADDS, will it become the domain controller or server? Now, I have taken a machine with the server operating system. Now I have installed the service called domain service called ADDS. Now will it become the domain controller this machine? No, never. It will not become. Yes, we have to configure it. We have to configure it. So you can use the word configure or promote. What is the word we can use? Configure or promote to DC. DC means server. How to do that? We will see practically. So once we made it or configure or promote to DC, this machine will become the DC, domain controller. So from the domain controller, if I create a user, from the domain controller, if I create a user, what you will call that user now? If I I have made my machine as a domain controller server. Now I'm creating one user from the server. What you will call that user now? Yes, very nice, Suresh. You have to call that as a domain user. No. Ali, it is not called client, it is called. So when I create a user from the DC machine, that user is called domain user. So if I create a user from workgroup machine, that user is called. Just now, yesterday we discussed, today also I revise. When I create a user from workgroup machine, what you will call that user? Local user. So if I create a user from workgroup machine, it is called local user. But if I create the user from the server, that is domain controller, what you will call that user? What you will call that user? Just now I have written here, domain user. Are you following? When I create a user from domain controller, that is server, that user is called domain user. So what is the difference between domain user and local user? Local user can log in same machine where it is created, but domain user will be created where? Domain user is created every machine. You see, listen to my question. Domain controller, domain user is created from where? Domain user is created from where? From the DC machine. Yes, Tushar, you are right. So domain user is created from DC machine, whereas local user is created from workgroup machine. Local user can log in from same system where it is created. But what is the advantage of domain user? Domain user will be created from DC machine. So domain user will be created from DC machine, from domain controller. And domain user can log in from which system? Domain user can log in from any system. Domain user can log in from any system within the domain. Within the domain means that machine should be part of the domain or should be joined into the domain. Then only that user can log in. Domain user can log in from any system within the domain, but that system has to be part of the domain. If it is not the part of the domain, you cannot log in that user in that machine. So now this is joined into the domain. So here your domain is given by which shape? Triangle. So all these computers are inside the domain. So it means it is joined into the domain. Now domain user is created in DC. So can the domain user log in from this computer? Yes or no? Domain user can log in from here? Yes, it can log in. Can that same user log in from this machine also? Yes or no? Yes. Domain user can log in from any system. We don't have to create the user in every system where we are logging. Domain user has to be created only at one place in one machine, that is DC, and that user can log in from any system. Do we need to create the user in every machine? No. So which model is better? Tell me, workgroup or domain? Domain. Because in domain model, everything has to be done only how many times? One time. And where it has to be done? Everything has to be done where? In domain model. In DC machine. Remember this. Are you understanding, everyone? So the domain user can log in from either this machine or this machine. So that's what I've written. Domain user can log in from any system within the domain. But say suppose here I have a workgroup machine. Here the machine is in workgroup. If I create a user, so now this user is called which user? Local user. Now this machine is workgroup. Now my user one can log in here. Now this user one. So what we are saying? Domain user can log in from any system. So here, this user I'm trying to log in here. So can it log in or cannot log in? It cannot log in. Why? Yes, your answer is right. But why? Yes, that is the answer. Very nice. Because this machine is not in the domain. It is in workgroup. So can the domain user log in? No. Local user can login from workgroup machine. Whereas the domain user, important point, domain user cannot log in from workgroup machine or workgroup system. So domain user can log in from any system, but condition is there that system has to be part of the domain. Then only it can log in. So the domain user can log in here. Yes. Here. Yes. Because they are the part of the domain. But can that same user log in here? That same user one can log in here. No. Because it is in work group. So in work group, which user can log in? Only local user. Whereas in the domain model, which user can log in from which machine? In domain model, which user can log in from which machine? Any user can log in from any machine. But that user has to be created in all machine? No, only in one machine. Where? DC machine. So domain user will be created from DC machine. That user can log in from any system, but that system has to be part of domain. But domain user, remember, cannot log in from workgroup machine. This is the point you have to remember. If you understand this point, means during the MCSE course, you will be not confused. You will be very clear about this point. If you are clear, means you will not get the confusion when you do the MCSE remaining practicals. Is it clear? Everybody understood? Domain user cannot log in from workgroup machine. Domain user can log in from which system? From which system the domain user can log in? Domain user can log in from any system which is the part of the domain or which is joined into the domain, but not from the workgroup. So in workgroup machine, only which user can log in? Local user. Are you following? Domain user need to be created where? Domain user need to be created where? In DC machine, and can log in from any system. But that system has to be part of that domain. So I hope you understood this. Is it clear? So now the domain user is created from DC machine. That user can log in from any system, provided that system is a part of the domain. But if that system is not a part of the domain, then what happens? If that computer is not part of the domain, can that user log in? Is it clear? Now the user one is created from DC machine. User one is created from DC machine. Now I am trying to log in with the name user. The username is created with what name in DC machine? What is the username created in DC machine? User one. But here I am giving what name? User. Just name user. Will it log in? Now user is created with what name? User one. I am giving what name? User. Will it log in? So online also 50% answer, offline also same. The answer is no. Username is wrong. User here is created with what name? User one. But here I'm writing user. So if the username is wrong, can it log in? So now here also checking is taking place. In domain model also checking will take place. Yes. We have discussed in yesterday's session. In workgroup model, username correct or not, it will be checked by whom? NTLM protocol. Where? In SAM database file, which is called SAM user database file. Now, same way in domain model, the username is checking or not? If you give the username wrong or which is not created, that name if you give, it can log in. Oh, so in domain model also authentication takes place. Authentication means verifying, checking the username and password, correct or not. Authentication means checking the username and password is correct or not. So now in the domain model, the authentication takes place through which protocol? So now here, this is now we are working on which model, workgroup model or domain model? So in domain model, the authentication of username and password will be checked where? In domain model authentication, is it username and password is correct or not? Who will check? So in domain model authentication of username and password, who will check? Of username and authentication of username and password, who will check? It will be checked by who? In DC machine, it will be checked. All of you are saying correctly, but I'm asking who? Who? Administrator will check. So in domain model authentication of username and password, it is checked. It is checked or verified. Who will check the username and password correct or not? It will be checked by not administrator, but it will be checked by Kerberos protocol. What is the protocol name? So in workgroup model, which protocol will check that? In workgroup model, who will check? NTLM protocol. Whereas in the domain model, who will check? Kerberos protocol. So who will check the username and password is correct or not? In domain model, who will check? Kerberos protocol. So this Kerberos protocol will check the username and password is correct or not. Kerberos protocol will check where? Where it will check? It will check in the centralized database file. Centralized database file. Centralized database file means that file name is what? Centralized database file name. What is the centralized database file name? ntds.dit. So the Kerberos protocol will check username and password is correct or not. So who will check username and password is correct or not? Kerberos protocol. Where it will check? ntds.dit. So what is the full form of ntds.dit? So here N stands for new, T stands for new technology, D for S for new technology directory, S means service, then dot, D stands again for directory, I means directory information, T stands for tree. So this is the full form of the ntds.dit. So this ntds.dit file will be present where? In which machine it will be present? So this ntds.dit file will be present where? In which machine? Yes, it will be present in the DC machine. So the complete domain information will be stored where? In DC machine. In DC machine, the complete domain information will be stored in. So the user name and password information also in DC machine will be stored where? In DC machine, where it will be stored? In ntds.dit file. So what is the full form of NTDS.DIT? New Technology Directory Service dot Directory Information Tree. Now this Kerberos protocol will check username and password is correct or not. Where it will check? It will check in centralized database file. So this file will be present where? In DC machine. Okay, understood? Is it clear, all of you? If it is clear, we'll go to the first point, ADDS. Then domain controller, then domain. After that, we'll start the practical. And remember, today onwards, you will have lengthy practicals. Yes, online students, have you understood? Okay. So in domain model, the authentication takes place through which protocol? Yes, Kerberos. Authentication in domain model takes place through which protocol? Kerberos. Kerberos protocol will check where the username and password is correct or not. DIT. So this file, NTDS.DIT will be present where? In DC machine. And yes, what is the location you see? So this NTDS.DIT file will be created when we configure the domain controller. So the location of this NTDS.DIT file is C drive. Then you go to the Windows folder. Inside the Windows folder, you can find what you'll find here? NTDS folder. Inside this NTDS folder, a file will be there with the name NTDS. What is the name? NTDS.DIT. So this is the location for the NTDS.DIT file. And this location will be coming in which machine? In DC system or DC machine. Understood? So in workgroup model, authentication takes place through NDLM protocol in SAM database file. Whereas in the domain model, the authentication takes place through Kerberos protocol. It will take place through the Kerberos protocol. Okay, so now we will start these three things we have to discuss. What are the three things we have to discuss? Now we'll start with which topic? So now if the username is given correctly and password is matched, so user is created where? In DC machine, but user is logging from where? Yes, can it log in? Yes, that is the advantage of domain. So once we have given the username and password, so in the background, what happens? Kerberos protocol will check in DC machine that username and password is correct or not. If it is correct, then it will allow to log in. And if it is not correct, cannot log in. Now that same user, can it log in from this machine also? Yes. So this is the benefit or advantage with the domain model. Any user can log in from any system, provided that system is a part of the domain, should not be in the work. So same thing. So user will be created from one machine. So are we creating the user in this machine? In domain model, do we need to create the user here? No, only here. And that user can log in here or here, whichever machine is free, it can log. So in every company, this will be used. Domain controller will be, from the domain controller, user will be created. Whenever the company conduct the interview and selected few people, their account will be created by administrator. So from where he will create? From the DC. So that user can log in from any system, whichever is free. So if you want to work in the domain model, you should be aware about three things. What are those three things? Domain, first ADDS, then domain controller, then domain. So these three things, ADDS, domain controller, and domain. So can I proceed? So first we'll start with ADDS. What is the full form of ADDS?
Active Directory Domain Service.
Yes, ADDS, full form, Active Directory Domain. So if you want to make your machine domain controller, first condition is your machine should be with server OS. Second thing you have to do is to make the machine with server OS into the server. What is the thing you have to do? Install the service. Which service? ADDS. Without installing the ADDS, can you make your machine and network changes from the workgroup to the domain model? No. So this is the first thing you have to do. To make your machine as a server or domain controller, first thing you have to do, take a machine with server OS. Then join it into the or you can say that machine or computer which you have installed with server OS. By default, it will be in workgroup. So it make that machine which is in workgroup as a server or domain controller. First thing you have to do is what? Install the service. Which service? Domain service. Domain service. So once we install the domain service, will that machine will become the domain controller? No. What you have to do after installing the ADDS? We discuss, no. We have to promote or configure it to make it DC. Then it will become DC. Okay. So before you before you make the DC, first thing you have to install the ADDS. So what is ADDS? It is a service. It is a database service which stores the information of all the users and computer groups, services, and resources. So ADDS is a database service which stores the information of all users, computer groups, services, and resources. So ADDS contain many services. Out of that, one of the most important services, ADDS contain many important services. Out of that, one of the important services Kerberos protocol service. So one of the important services, Kerberos protocol service, which will authenticate the username and password. So ADDS is a service which stores the information of all users, computer, group, services, and resources. So it contains many services. Out of that many services, one of the services Kerberos protocol service, which is used for authentication purpose. So in the background, who will check the username and password is correct or not? Who will check? Kerberos protocol, where it will check? Yes, in ntds.dit. That file will be present in which machine? ntds.dit. In server, when we make the server, there only this file will be created. So when we make the domain controller, there only this file ntds.dit will be created, where all the users, computer group, everything information will be stored. Where? In ntds.dit file. Location is there. But who will check name is correct or not? Who will check? Kerberos protocol. ntds.dit file and Kerberos protocol, they are one and same or different? Kerberos protocol and ntds file, both are same or different? They are different. Kerberos is a protocol which will check username and password is correct or not. NTDS is a database file which contains the information. So Kerberos protocol will check username and password is correct or not. From where it will check? In ntds.dit file. Like the what? In workgroup, NTLM protocol is checking username and password correct or not. Where? In SAM. So here the concept is same, but name is different. There the user has to be created in every machine. Here only one machine. But security is there. There it is NTLM protocol. Here it is Kerberos protocol. Are you understanding? So now you can see what is the purpose of Active Directory. So Active Directory main purpose is to make our network centralized. So why we are using the ADDS service? Why we are using the ADDS service? To make our network centralized. Centralized means by sitting on a single machine, we can able to control and manage all the users, which makes the administrator job simple and easy. So why we are creating the domain model? So in the domain model, everything can be done from single machine. So that is nothing but called domain model is also called what? Domain model is also called as what? Centralized network or centralized model. So with the help of which service we are making our network centralized? Yes, with the help of the ADDS service, we are making our network centralized. So what is the main purpose of using the ADDS service? To make our network centralized. Centralized means what? From a single machine, everything can be controlled and managed. Like here you are doing. User is creating where? In DC. That user can log in from any system. Do we need to create the user in every system? No. So this is advantage or disadvantage? Advantage. So with ADDS, we can make our network centralized. Then with the ADDS, we can make our network completely what? Organize to centrally manage and organize the things. Users, account, group, computer, network resources. Okay. So with the help of the ADDS, we can do what? We can organize. What do you mean by organize? With the first property or first purpose of ADDS is to make our network centralized. Second purpose is what? To organize the users. To organize the users and group. To organize means managing them Managing them what? In a simple and easy way. That is nothing but organized. Yes, we'll organize them department wise so that managing becomes simple and secured. So that's why we are creating a centralized network. So once we can make the network centralized by using the ADDS, we can organize all our users, computer group and resources. So which makes the user also access the resources easily. And administrator job also becomes what? Easy. That's why everywhere we use which model? Which model? Domain. So today we'll see practically how to create a domain model. So first point, did you understood? What is ADDS? Yes. ADDS is a service which is used to make our network centralized. Centralized means from a single machine, we should be able to control and manage all our users and computer. So with ADDS, we can centrally manage all the users, computer, group, and resources. Okay. So once the network is made centralized, the administrator job will increase or decrease? Administrator job will increase or decrease? Decrease. Now he has to do everything how many times? Only one time. So did you understood the first point clearly, everyone? So the first point is about ADDS. So have you understood ADDS? Okay, now next point. Next point is what? Domain. Domain means what? Domain means what? After this. So first we discuss ADDS. Now we are discussing what? Domain. So what do you mean by domain? Domain is a logical boundary. What is ADDS means? What you will say in one word? It is a service through which we can make our network centralized. Same way, what you will say to the domain? Domain is a logical boundary. What is a domain? Domain is a logical boundary under which all our devices will be working with a single or common name for easy administration and security. So, domain is a logical boundary. Or you can say domain is a one name given. So domain is identified with what? Domain is a logical boundary. So can we see this boundary? Can we see logical things? Logical means what? Which we can't see. Opposite of physical is what? Logical. So domain is a logical boundary. So can we see that boundary? No. But that boundary we can identify it. Or the domain can be identified by domain name. Domain is a logical boundary. I repeat, domain is a logical boundary under which all our devices are, all the devices will work with a common DNS name. The DNS name is nothing but domain name for easy administration and security. Second point you see, now you can understand second point. Creating the domain controller. After installing the ADDS, what you have to do? After installing the ADDS, what you have to do? Configure. Configure is also called promote. Yes. So after installing the ADDS, while configuring or promoting the domain controller, what happens? While creating the domain controller, it also creates. Creating the domain controller in a network also creates what? Domain. So While configuring the domain controller, we have to give a name. That name is called domain name, or simply domain. Domain is a name. So domain is a logical boundary. To that logical boundary, which we can't see, but it is given one name. So that is called domain name. So while creating the domain controller, domain get created. So while configuring the domain controller, we have to give some name to the domain. That name becomes the DNS name or domain name. So you cannot have a domain controller without domain. You cannot have a domain without domain controller. So domain is identified with what? Domain is identified with what? DNS name. DNS name means name with extension. Name with extension is called as what? Domain name. So there are two types of names. I will repeat one more time. Don't worry. I'll repeat one more time. So just see here. This is here. If I write some name, example, I'm writing this name. So is there any extension is there? No. So a name without extension, a name without extension is called as net BIOS name. What it is called? A name without extension is called net BIOS name. But if I write the same name with extension, then this name is called name with extension. A name with extension is called as domain name. A name with extension is called as domain name or DNS name. DNS name and domain name both are same. Now you concentrate on this point. While configuring or creating the domain controller, domain also get created. So you cannot have a domain without domain controller. So for one domain, how many domain controller you can have? One. So can you have a domain controller without domain? No. Can you have the domain controller without domain? No. Same way, can you have the domain controller without domain? No. Same way, domain can be there without domain controller? No. They are interlinked. So when we are creating or configuring the domain controller, we have to give one name. That name becomes the domain name. So I repeat, while configuring the domain controller, we have to give name. That name should not be flat name. That name should not be without extension. That name should be with extension. So name with extension is called as domain name, or simply it is domain name or DNS name. Are you understanding? So when we configure the domain controller, domain get created. So what is a domain? Domain is a logical boundary. Can we see that? No. But domain is identified with, domain is a logical boundary under which all devices will work with a common DNS name. So domain is identified with the domain name. So domain is identified with domain name. Domain name means a name with extension. So this domain get created, or we have to give the name while configuring the domain controller. Are you getting the clarity? Domain is a boundary. Can we see that boundary? No. That boundary we will identify with a DNS name, that is called domain name or DNS name. Is it clear to everyone? Yes? Have you understood, everyone? Okay. So in this point, you remember, without domain, you cannot have a domain controller. And without domain controller, you cannot have a domain. Domain cannot be there without domain controller. Same way, domain controller cannot be there without domain. Both has to be there. So for one domain, how many domain controller? One. So I repeat, domain is a logical boundary. Domain is a logical boundary under which all devices will work with a common DNS name for easy administration and security. Domain is identified by domain name. So this logical boundary is identified with DNS name or domain name. So we can't see the logical boundary, but we can identify that boundary with the help of a domain name. So whenever you see the triangle, you have to understand that is a domain model. So whenever you see the triangle, you have to understand that domain model. And in that domain model, some name is there with extension. That name you have to understand as what? This ms.com is what name now? Domain name. This logical boundary is what? Domain. Logical boundary is domain. This ms.com, a name with extension is called what? Domain name. So domain is identified by, the last line is important. Domain is identified by domain name. So first point I told you, ADDS. ADDS is a service which is used to make our network centralized, a domain model. So just by installing the ADDS, will that machine become server? No. So we have to promote, we have to configure. While configuring the domain controller, we have to give one name. That name should be with extension. That name is called domain name. So domain cannot be there without domain controller, or domain controller cannot be there without domain name. So domain is a logical boundary under which all devices will work with a common DNS name for easy administration and security. So while creating the domain controller, domain get created. So for one domain controller will be there. So domain is identified with DNS name. DNS name means name with extension. I repeated multiple times. Is it clear to everybody? So can I go to the last point now? Yes, everyone, okay? Okay, fine. The last point now, domain controller. So domain controller is a server. What is the domain controller? Domain controller is a server. ADDS is a service. Domain is a logical boundary, or it is a name. Domain is a domain name. Domain is a logical boundary to which a name is given, DNS name, which we have to give while configuring the domain controller. So domain controller is a server. So in one word, domain controller is what? Yes, domain controller is a server. So once it is configured, it will contain what? Two things, one file, one folder. So when you configure the domain controller, one file will be created with what name? With what name? ntds.dit is a file. Which file? It is called database file, centralized database file. So this file will be created when we configure the domain controller. While configuring the domain controller, this file will get created along with one folder. That folder name is what? That folder name is what? Syswall. And the file name is ntds.dit. What is the full form of ntds.dit? Directory, new technology, directory service, dot directory information tree. Here I have written, see, directory information tree. You will take because it is too much. Understood this? Yeah. Everyone, online students also, have you understood? Yes, sir. So let me finish with this, then we'll have a break. So domain controller means it is a server. So while configuring the domain controller, one file will be created, which is called entities.dit, which contain complete domain information. One folder will be created, which is called sysvol, which contain the GPO. GPO means group policy object. All the domain controller will have read write on entities.dit and sysvol. Read write option means you can able to modify it, edit it, except RODC. RODC is what? Read only domain control. So if your company is having multiple branches, in one of the branch, there is no senior administrator, only one junior administrator. And you don't want junior administrator to modify your DC. So you can create one type of server which is called DC, but read only DC. So that is called RODC. So RODC means read only domain controller. So here he can only monitor it, but he can't do any changes. So in read only domain controller, entities.dit file and sysvol will have read option. But in all normal domain controller, the entities.dit and sysvol will have what option? Read write. Means we can able to modify. So entities is a database. The entities is a database which contain complete domain information. Entities.dit file contain which contain complete domain information. Complete domain information where it will be present. So the complete domain information in the domain model will be there where in entities.dit file. Whereas the sysvol folder contains the template means sample settings for group policy object. What is group policy object? We'll be discussing in group policy class. So group policy object means your requirement. Now the company said that user should not open the Internet Explorer, or for that user you block the notepad. So what is our requirement? We have to write that as when we are writing the requirement as an administrator, that is called group policy object, which will be stored in sysvol folder. So entities.dit file is more important compared to the sysvol. These two things will get created when we configure the domain controller. So while creating the domain controller, domain name we have to give. So once the domain controller getting created, these two things will be created. What? entities.dit file, which contain the complete domain information, and sysvol folder, which contain group policy object. So these things we will see practically after the break. So today onwards, you will have multiple and lengthy practicals, not like 5 minutes practical, because today we have to convert the machine from work group to domain model. So every day you will be doing the practical from DC, all the practicals, and verification you will be doing from other machines. So on Monday, we have to create one more machine, and we'll see how to join into domain. Then everything you have to do from DC and verification from member side. So yes, online students, shall we have a break now? 5 to 7 minutes. After that, we can do the practical. You can also feel little bit fresh and more concentrate able to. So shall we have a break? Okay. So now I'm keeping my mic in mute position. After the break, we'll see whatever theoretically we have discussed, we'll do practically. Okay. So please take a break of 5 to 7 minutes, get relax. After that, we'll have a practical. So can I begin now the practical? Yes. Okay, I'll show you. So whatever theoretically we have discussed, now we'll do it practically. So for that, we have to first of all, we have to go to our VMware and we have created one virtual machine. Yes. So you have to power on that machine. This is the machine which we have installed. Click on this machine. Power on. If you open to, it will be showing you, take the ownership, don't take it, close it. In the background, it will be running. Otherwise, the file will get corrupted. You have to again create the virtual machine. So whatever I'm going to show, it will be there in this file. So when you do the practical, keep this file and all the steps you can see here. So today we are creating what? DC. So how to make this DC here given? First, you have to assign one simple name to your system. Then see that system is in work group. So you can check like this. Then assign the IP address. IP address and preferred DNS should be same. Then install ADDS. All the steps are there. Then click on the flag and promote it or configure it to the server. Okay, so this practical you have to do it. So after the practical, don't remove it. This will be required at the end of the course. So how to remove ADDS, I have given it. But after making the DC, don't remove it because you have to do all the practical from DC. So this particular steps is required at the end of the course. Okay. So everything you have to do from the DC machine because in the companies also it will be done same. Now, let me show you this practical. So how to log in? You can click here or press Alt Control Insert. Now who can do this? Only administrator. So don't log in with user, you log in with administrator. Log in with the administrator. Now, how I'm doing, I'll suggest you everybody do the same way. Don't do parallelly the practicals, especially the online student, you will get stuck. So first thing what you have to do, you have to give some simple system name to your machine. So what is the first step you have to do? Give some simple name to your machine. How to give it? Go to the PC, right click, properties. What you have to do? Select your PC, right click, then properties. Then here you can see this is the default name given to your system. So can you remember this name? This is the name given. So can you remember? No. So what you have to do? I repeat, go to your PC, right click, then properties. So there is a option. If you go down, rename this PC is there, but better you go down and go to which one? Rename this PC advanced feature. That is a better option. So click on rename this PC advanced. Then don't write any description. Don't write any description. Click on change. So here you will see highlighting blue color. So which is a complicated name. So I'm giving what name? System 1. In your case, you can give whatever name you want to give it, which you can remember easily. So by default, this machine is in work group. So now say okay. Now here it is saying you must restart. Okay, close it. Now, what is your default system name now? This. So it will get changed after you restart, compulsory restart. So now my system name will become what? System 1, which I can remember easily. So in the notes, whichever system 1 is there, that is your DC after this practical. Now you have to log in again. Now check whether this machine name has become the system 1 or not. How to check it? Go to the PC, right click, properties. Now what is the name it's showing? System 1. If you go down, you can click on rename this PC advanced feature. So click on change. Now can you see the name system 1? And it is in work group. How many times you want to change, you can change it. No problem. So first thing you have to do, make one simple system name. Understood? Now second thing what you have to do, you have to give the IP address. Second thing what you have to do, give the IP address. So now here we have to give the IP. So from where we can give the IP? From the network icon. So select the network icon. Static IP we have to give, not permanent, not temporary from the DSCP, because still we have not configured DSCP. So select the network. Select the network, right click, then properties. Then click on, after properties, click on change adapter setting. So in some of your machine, this may show cross mark like I'm getting. In some machines, you may not get the cross mark, but still what you have to do, you can see your highlighting machine is what? So this is the, so select your machine, right click, then select the machine on the top, right click on that machine, then click on settings. Select the machine, right click, click on settings. Then this window will come. So your network adapter is your LAN card. So select the network adapter, which is connected to NAT. You change it to, so why I'm getting the cross mark means it is not connected to the switch. So we have to connect to the virtual switch. So that virtual switch is your custom. So you select the network adapter, change from NAT to custom. So under the custom, you have how many switches? 20 switches from 0 to 19. This is given in the VMware. So you connect to any one switch. So I'm connecting to which switch? You can connect to 0 also, 1 also, 5 also, 10, any one, but connect it. So under the custom, select one of the virtual switch. Then say, okay, it means now your LAN card is connected to the switch. So now that cross mark will be gone. So in your case, if it is not, I'm showing the cross mark also, you select LAN card, change from NAT to custom. Under the custom, you put any one switch, connect to any one switch. Now you have to give the IP. After connecting that, don't take bridge connection, just use the, this option is better. So which I have to taken no, so that is better. Don't go with the bridge also, custom you do it. Now we have to give the IP. How to give the IP? Select this, right click, then properties. So which IP you are working, 4 or 6? 4. Select the 4. Then again, properties. Then here by default, this option is selected. Which one? Automatically means it is designed to take IP from DHCP. But the server should have what? Static IP. So select here which option? Select which option? Second option. Second option. Use the following option. Use the following IP address. Now, after selecting that, give the IP. So for simplicity, I'm giving class A network IP. Which IP? 10.1. Then press tab key. Automatically it will take. So this is class. Which class IP? 10.1. Class A. So top subnet mask will be, just press the tab key, it will automatically take it. Now we are working on single network. So is there any default gateway required? Default gateway required? No. So you leave the default gateway. That is nothing but router IP. But come to the preferred DNS. So when we configure the DC, our DC and DNS, preferred DNS IP means DNS server IP. So our DC server and DNS server both will be in same machine. So that's why your preferred DNS IP should be, what is the IP you have given to the machine? Same IP should be given to the preferred DNS. Are you following? Your machine IP address and preferred DNS IP should be same, because your DC and your DNS both will be in same machine. Is it clear, online students? Okay. So click on OK. Now this is the way you can assign the IP. So I'm going very slowly. Still, what is the problem? See, you go to the LAN card, right click properties. When default gateway means, we have discussed, default gateway means router. So are we using router? Because we are working on a single network. So is the router is required? Default gateway is nothing but router IP. So that's why don't give. So IP address and preferred DNS should be same. You give any IP. Is it clear? Okay, this is the way you have to assign the IP. After assigning the IP, so first we have given some simple name to a machine, then IP address. These two things you have to do. After that, you have to do this step by step. After the DC, if you change the system name, no, your database will be gone. Your DC will not work. I repeat once again, because the people are doing, after DC, they are changing the DC system name. So your database will be gone, your DC will not work. Again, you have to delete and create it. So how I'm showing you, same way you do. First give system name, then IP address, then create the DC. Now we will proceed with creating this machine as a DC. In the real time, if you are working on two different network, then you have to use the default gateway. If you are in the same network, all the systems are in same network, no need of default gateway. That depends on your setup or your place where you are working on single network or multiple. Okay, now we'll see how to create the domain controller. For that, press the Windows key, click on Server Manager Console. Everything has to be done from DC machine, this console only. You can call this as a Server Manager Console or simply dashboard. So now, what we have to do now? Go to the, see here. Is there any ADDS is installed? ADDS is installed? No. So to install the ADDS, what you have to do? So now click on Tools. Do you find any Active Directory consoles? Anything starting with AD name? Active Directory? No, because it is not installed. So now how do you check this machine is a DC or not? The simple and best method is go to the command prompt and type this net space accounts. How to check your DC? People will ask you in interview. So give net space account. So here you have to see computer role name. So what it is showing? Server means it is a DC. No. Server means it is a machine with server OS. So when it is become the DC, what it will show? Primary. So how to check the DC? If anybody asks, you have to say, go to the command prompt, type net space accounts. It is accounts. Then the computer role name, if showing server means that is a computer with server OS. If it is showing computer role name primary, then it is a DC, domain controller. Understood? So this machine became the DC? No, it is not become. So you have to create it. For that, first install the ADDS after giving the system name and IP address. So how to install the ADDS? So this is called notification. Yellow mark is there. When you get the red mark means, red flag means you have done wrong. Everything went wrong. If everything is white means everything is fine. Below the flag, if you get a yellow mark means something is pending, something is incomplete. So are you getting any yellow mark? No, no, still we haven't started. So everything is fine. So first install the ADDS. How to install? Open the server manager console. Click on add roles and features. Then click on next how many times? 3 times. I have written in the notes. You have to read and go. Next, 1, 2, 3. Now, which service you have to install now? Second service. Some people, what they are doing, these are all are very big services. So you have to install only second one. By mistake, if you install first and second, you install it and see after whenever you install, open the machine, automatically it will shut down, it will restart. So don't try to install multiple service, only one. No, you want only restarting to do machine means you install how many service you want to install. But for this practical DC, which service is required? You read ADDS, Active Directory Domain Service. So click on that. It will ask, do you want to add the features? So what you have to say? Add the features. Now, which box got selected? So did I install DNS? No. When I configure, automatically it will get installed. That's why IP and preferred DNS should be saved. Then click on next till you get the option install. So click on just next, next. Now which option is highlighting? Install. Now click on install. Now which service will get installed now? ADDS service will get installed. And don't stop or don't shut down the machine when the service is installed in between. Otherwise, you will be not here, not there. You have to wait till it get installed up to 100%. Least for practical level section, can we get the recording of the job? Only for practical session. See, you can check my system. The recordings will be not done here. It will be done on the Cisco WebEx. Okay. Directly it will be done. From there, they will send it. So we need to ask them, right? To ask them if they give okay. So now, how much it is got installed? 100%. Then you close it. Now here, what you find? ATDS got installed. Now, but here below the flag, what color you got? Yellow. Yellow indicate something is pending, something is unfinished, something is remaining. Now, you go to the command prompt and check whether this machine has become the DC. How to check? Now, whether it's showing primary? No, it means this machine still haven't become the DC. So how to make it DC now? Yes, we have to click on this yellow mark or on the flag. So to make it DC, what you have to do? This is what we have discussed in theory. First, install the ADDS. After installing, we have to promote. So for promote option, where you have to click on flag. Click on the flag. Are you getting the option now? Are you getting the option? Promote this server to domain control. So till now, any DNS is installed? No. Now it will get installed. See here. Click on this server to domain controller. Now here three options are there. So if I tell you three options now, you will get confused. So these options we will discuss in Active Directory second class. So today you just remember which option we have to select. Third option, last option. What is the third and last option? Add a new forest. So when you have to use second and first option, we will discuss in second class of Active Directory. Today you have to select which option? Third one. If you select the wrong option, your DC will not be created. So please remember which option you have to select. Third option. Add a new forest. Now here next option is highlighting. No. Now what we have discussed in theory, when we configure the domain controller, domain need to be created. Our domain has to be created. Now here it is asking root domain name. So while configuring or promoting the DC, you have to give the name. Which name? Domain name. Without that, domain controller cannot be created. So domain name means name with extension. So don't write flag name. Compulsory you have to write name with extension. So you can write any name. When I'm saying any name, what people are doing, they are writing system name same, domain name same. Your domain name and system name should be never same. So I told like that, you can use your name. So they are writing system name, their name, domain name also their name. How the system will understand? So don't keep your domain name and system name same. It has to be compulsory different. So like I gave my system name sys1 and now I'm giving my domain name what? So in your case, system name also you can give any name. Domain name should be any name, but make sure the domain name and system name should be different. And domain name should compulsory will be there with the extension. It can be .com, .co, .in, anything, but dot should be there. Then now which option is highlighting? Next. So select here third option, give the domain name. So while configuring the domain controller, domain get created. So domain means a name, DNS name, which we are assigning to our domain controller. So now the domain will be identified with this DNS name. Are you understanding? What we have discussed in theory, we are doing same thing. Is it the same thing? Okay. Now click on next. Now here, the page is loading. You have to wait. Now here, what is there? Forest functional level and domain functional level. So what is the value they have given? 2016. So I can give the password and proceed. So when you take, now today we are creating DC. After few days, we have to create the backup of DC, that is called ADC. So if you take this value means your ADC should be created on minimum 16, not less than that. But what is recommended is when you are configuring the DC, make sure that you select the least value so that in the future when you configure your ADC, you can take any OS from this series onwards. So what is the least value? 2008. So I'm selecting forest function level 2008 and domain functional also 2008. So that I can make my ADC on 2008 onwards. I don't have to do on 8 onwards. So I can use 8 or 12 or 16 or 19 or 22. But if I keep 16 means I cannot use 8 and 12. Are you following? From that onwards. Clear? Now here, which service is getting installed now? Along with the global catalog. So if I uncheck this, your DNS will not be there, means your domain will not be identified. So your DC will not be created. So don't uncheck this. So that's what I said. When we configure the domain controller, DNS will get installed automatically. Without that, your domain cannot be identified. So now, can you get to the next option? No, what you have to do, you have to give some password. So this is the password for Active Directory service or directory service. Directory service means your ntds.dit and sysvol will get created when we assign the password. So here, what is your admin password? That same password you give. You don't keep some new password. It will be difficult for you to remember multiple password. So you keep single password. So once I give the password of my administrator, next option is highlighting. Next. Now, next option is highlighting. Yes, click on next. Now here, NetBIOS name means what name will come? Tell me. NetBIOS name means what name should come? Without extension. Better. So in my case, what should come? Extension. It should come without extension means it came or not. So manually you should not write. My domain name is what? Zoom.com. So NetBIOS name will be what? Zoom. NetBIOS name means I told you name without extension. So domain name should never be given with NetBIOS name. Now it will convert that automatically NetBIOS name to domain name. Click on next. But you should not give the domain name with NetBIOS name. Now what is getting created? Your ntds.dit is getting created in this location. C drive, Windows, ntds folder. In that ntds file. And a folder, which folder? Sysvol, where? C drive, Windows, Sysvol. Next. Now this is what says. Now your domain is getting created with this name. NetBIOS name is forest function level this. So if you want to change it, go previously. No, you want to continue means click on next. Now here it will check all the things, whatever we have given. Now it should say like this green tick mark. All the prerequisites check passed successfully. Now to make your DC machine, what you have to do? Click install to begin the installation. So what you have to do? Install. So now so much process will take place. If you have done anything mistake or our machine is having some files corrupted, you will get red mark. So it will show your domain controller cannot be configured. So you have to restart the machine, remove it, again, ADDS, whatever you have, then try it. Again, same problem means delete the machine, create a new machine and configure. So to remove it, you have to use this option, manage. From here, you have to remove. If you get an error. So which files are saving this log folder? This log folder, group policy object. That we will discuss in group policy. So here we should get a green tick mark indicating that your server is configured successfully. Then it becomes what? Domain controller. So after you make the domain controller, your system will become slow. See here, what it is got green tick. This server is successfully configured as a domain controller. So it machine became domain controller. Now automatically it will restart. After that, you will see lots of changes. Now first time it will take lot of time. And your machine will become little bit slow because it is a very big service, ADDS. Now, how do you check your machine has become DC? It will take minimum, even in SSD, 2 minutes. In a normal machine, it may take 3 to 4 minutes. Recording. Your batch student is there, no? Yesterday he was sitting. That person. He joined online. We have some. We got we can contact you and we can take the video from. So now here my DC is created. Now log in here. Your OS will not get corrupted. That's why we are using what? VMware. Maximum your machine, virtual machine will get corrupted, not your physical machine. That's why don't install it on your physical machine. Use the VMware. It will not cause any problem to your physical machine. Now, how do you check your machine has become DC or not? So this is the simple and best method. Go to the command prompt, type it what? Net space accounts. So now it will be showing what? Computer role name primary. So it means this is your machine has become DC. This is one method to check. Another method is now see here. Here now the page is loading. So did you install manually the DNS? No. But when we configure the DC, DNS also got installed. So here it will show you. So whatever services is installed, it will show under the dashboard. So the yellow mark is gone. So it means it is now configured. Now you will see the services, names of the services. Which services is installed? We install ADDS, but DNS install when we configure or promote it. Now here you got the Active Directory services. For ADDS, this is your Active Directory services. Now your system name will show what? Domain name. So when we went, it was workgroup, yes? Now see here. Now it will show domain name because the machine has changed to domain model. So whether I manually return here anything, no, it has changed here. So this machine has become the domain model. Yes, understood? So this is how we have to identify. But best method is that NetSpace accounts. And one more thing now, here, when you make the DC, what happens? Your preferred DNS IP, what we have given, 10.1, but it will change. Our DC IP will change. Sorry, IP will not change, preferred DNS IP will change. Our preferred DNS IP will change to loopback IP address when we configure the domain controller. So what you have to do, your preferred DNS IP and DC, both are in same machine. So IP address and preferred DNS should be same. So you have to change your loopback to your machine IP. Now after that, you say, okay, close. Now just disable the LAN card and enable. You will see your domain name here. So it means now your machine has been configured domain controller. So using this domain controller, we can able to control and manage all the users and computer. Okay. So today, have you understood how to make your machine domain controller and change the network from workgroup to domain model? Okay. So with this, we are ending today's session. Tomorrow there will be no session as it is Sunday. So we'll meet on Monday.
The last one, can you please repeat it in the network after completing the DNS?
So you have to go to the network, right click, properties, change adapter setting, select your LAN card, right click properties, then IP version 4, properties. Now here it will be loopback IP address 127. You change it to 10.1. What is the IP you have given? That same. Okay. So this is what you have to do. After that, just disable and enable the LAN card. Is it clear?
Sir, I have a few questions.
Yes.
Yeah, first question is related to this one.
Which one?
If we are installing the server machine or physical machine instead of VM, you were enabling the interface card, right? By connecting to virtual switch. So
Your
in
voice is
actually,
not clear. You write it.
yeah, what I'm saying is, you have connected to your virtual switch, right, for VM. But if we are doing it in physical machine, how do we enable the network card? Do we need to connect to the actual switch?
See, you don't do in the physical machine. Tomorrow onwards or Monday onwards, you required multiple machine to do the practical. How you'll do?
No, I understand. For practical, you are explaining us. No, in real time scenario.
So what is your
when
question?
we are- Like you have enabled the interface card, right? LAN card, like assign the IP address. You have
See.
selected.
See, if you don't connect it to the switch, you cannot assign the IP address and it will not communicate.
Okay. So in real time, how do we do that? Like if we don't have virtual, we're doing it.
In the real time, if you are doing on physical machine, you will be connected to the physical switch. If you are doing on to the virtual, in real time also will create the virtual machine on a single physical machine. You have to connect to the virtual switch, like I have shown you.
Okay. So if we are not using virtualization, we have to connect to a physical switch.
Connect to the physical switch.
Understood. Second question is, there is something called restore password you are mentioning there, right? So if in
Which one?
case we give some, when we are configuring the DC, Okay, there is one place where we are asked to give the restore password, right? So that password are we going to use anywhere if in case we assign some different password? Will it be used anywhere?
No, no, it is just the password is been given to create the ntts.dit file.
Okay, if in case we give some different password, for example,
You can give, but if you try to open that, if it is asking the password, if you forget,
no, that means this password will be used to open the file, correct?
yes.
Okay, so when we are we can access the file using this password.
Okay. So that's it
Sir,
for
is
today.
a teaming yeah, 1 minute, sir. Is a teaming network card will be enabled in this VM client, sir?
No, it is by default, it is enabled. We don't have to do any settings. They are
So it will
providing
only work with
default.
the sync.
We have to just, yes. So when we use the second machine,
And one more
again,
request is yeah. And one more request, sir. Ask them to provide this video as early as possible to complete our this
already conveyed to them.
today's today's session so that will be completed tomorrow.
Okay.
Sir, just
Okay.
one last question. Actually, I'm facing one issue with my PC. I have made the partitions like C, D, and E. Now, if I want to extend the volume of that partition, so is it
See,
possible? Or?
you just come to near to your laptop or whatever you're speaking, because the Venu voice was very clear. Your voice is not clear and not audible. Speak loudly.
Yeah, can you hear me? No,
Yeah,
I'm
you
facing one issue. Yeah, now is it clear?
Speak loudly.
Yeah, I'm facing one issue. Like I want to increase the volume of partition because when we are installing the OS, this VM application, VM workstation and server, I want to create one partition, but I'm not able to increase the volume. I have given some size for the
in
partition, but after that I'm not able to increase it.
up and reformat the partition. That is the only simply solution. You have to take
Okay, so
backup
we
of your
cannot
Format
increase
in
drives and
okay,
or you
understood.
have to use some partition magic tools to extend your existing logical drives.
Partition magic tool. Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, I have one question.
Hmm.
I saw in my company for more servers, there is some different ports. Like we are getting some alerts like network adapter disconnected from port 0, port 1, port 3. So can we increase the port number in that our machine?
See,
Like
you are talking about here virtual or the physical machines?
So in real-time scenarios, there will be multiple NIC cards. I think maybe he's referring that.
No, he's talking about the switch ports to increase.
yes, yes, sir.
So if it is physical machine, you cannot increase it unless until you purchase one more machine, switch, sorry, and connect one cable from one end to other switch. So that two switches will act like a series. So you can connect your additional devices to the other switch. So it will work like a same switch.
Okay. Yeah, in virtual we can increase, I think.
We cannot increase what they have given. You have to follow that.
Okay.
Okay. So that's it for today. Thank you. See you on Monday. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, physical machine or DNS, same